Poll on pandemic, both in rats versus human life. On January 8, 2022, the Election Commissions of India announced the schedule of fresh assembly elections in five Indian states: Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Goa, Manipur, and Uttarakhand. For the first major were falls in the new year, and amid the gallopings of the cases of COVID-19 pandemic, the exponential rise in the daily cases of infections is a matter of serious concern to all, and one mathematical modeling done by the Indian Institute of Technology (IT) is confused suggests that the ongoing pandemic may peak in the late January or first week of February. Her daily cases could hit as high as 8 lakh. That is around the time when the interpolling surge begins in Uttar Pradesh. In these situations, holding free and fair elections with maximum voter turnouts is a challenge for the Election Commission. Concern persists in some quarters about the wisdom behind holding assembly polls in the five states at term, and COVID cases are rising so rapidly across India. The shares of these five states to India's our pandemic catalog has risen of late. The Allahabad High Court in Uttar Pradesh recently requested the election commissions to consider postponing the false dates given the worsening COVID situations in the state. But its former chief election commissioners point out in a newspaper article, it is not within the commission's power to postpone the polls, as the Indian constitution does not empower the poll body to do so. Postponing election is not in the hands at all and would be violations of the constitutional mandates that gives every Vidhan Sabha a fixed term. As soon as the term is over, the House stand dissolve automatically. The term of the House cannot be extended except in emergency declared by Parliament, which the Constitution restricts to only two situations: war and breakdown of an order. Who writes? Qureshi also recalls that in the 7 decades of India's electoral history, this has happened only thrice: in Assam, Punjab, Jammu, and Kashmir, amid insurgency situation. The election commission would be under the scanner for how it conducts the elections in the five states amid the pandemic. One cannot forget the severe criticisms the election commission had faced last year when it had conducted assembly polls in the midst of the devastating second wave of COVID 19 in May of last year. The Madras High Court told the Election Commission that you should vote on murder charges, probably. That you are the most responsible over the last few months in not stopping political parties from wanton abuse of the COVID 19 protocol. And that you're the only institution responsible for the situations that are in today. Incumbent Chief Election Commission Sushil Chandra, while coming out with the timetable for the coming polls on January 8th, defended the decisions to go ahead while the polls, starting that holding the elections is the essence of maintaining democratic governance. The challenge for Chandra remained the same as those of his predecessor, Sunil Arora, to ensure people's safety and that the pandemic situation is not exacerbated by the pause. The Chief Election Commissioner has outlined a slew of measures keeping in mind the pandemic and the involvement of more than 80 million voters in the forthcoming polls. It has broken some new ground. For the first time, it has veered physical rallies and road shows till January 15, since the rule would be reviewed after the since the ground situation is dynamic, indicating often incremental posture. Christians, however, questioned the rationale behind the move, the line drawn between rallies and public meetings. The real test of the Election Commission's ability to hold the polls will be how it enforces the elevated COVID related guidelines by marshalling the administrations in the five states and how much the latter covers. The biggest challenge for the efficiency and independence of the election commissions, of course, how it deals with the COVID guidelines violations, if any, by the political parties. There is a possibility that such issues could be politicized. But the election commission should not come under the any pressures from any quarter in cracking down on health protocols because they relate to an unprecedented public health emergency, while the Election Commission actions to enforce COVID guidelines will be under close scrutiny. Striker monitoring will be called for political parties evaluating by them because it is the parties which are unanimous in conveying to the election commission the polls we held on time despite the pandemic. The parties must help the election commissions to ensure that the electoral exercise does not turn into COVID 19 super spreader events, especially in rural areas where the health infrastructure is craggy.